Hi, it's Yuval from Agile Sparks again. Last time I showed a Kanban system design, Kanban board design, which involves both different levels of product backlog items, of work items, both features and stories. Just as a reminder, we have here those features that flow at the extreme left and right of the board, and stories or smaller items which flow inside the pipeline while during implementation. The big features here at the left are broken down into those small items. Here the small items run while the feature is waiting, and then at the end the small items are again collapsed into the big item. Now the question that comes up is, how do we know where we're at with this kind of board? And typically we use cumulative flow diagrams to understand the flow and how much of this release backlog here we've burned already, we've done already, how much work is remaining, and what is the trend. Are we on track to meeting our commitments? But if we look at how a cumulative flow diagram by default looks like for our kind of complex board, we get some kind of headache, and it's very colorful. That's the plus side here, but it's very hard to say what's going on. So let me take you through the steps of how to simplify and make the cumulative flow diagram more effective for answering the question, when will we finish what's currently in our release backlog. So the first step to take is, what I typically do is I simplify a bit. I say I don't care about the future backlog, for example. So that's one step of simplification. I don't care about whether an MMF is currently in work in progress or done. Just let's look at the MMF steps in general. In implementation as well, I don't care about whether it's currently in design, development, testing. At the moment, let's say we only care about whether it's in implementation or in another step, just the parent lanes, and the same for all of the parent lanes. So here we get a much simpler view of what's going on, of our trend. Now the next thing that we can do here is that we can start to calculate the burn-up trajectory. So for example, if we say, okay, what's our definition of done? Things that are in pre-release shows us the trend towards completion, because that's when we finish all of the advanced testing and things like that. Let's say pre-release is the burn-up lane. We started this release actually on the 1st of July. It's aimed, let's say, at the end of September. And let's refresh the data again. Now what we see is, in the yellow, the current burn-up trend, where we will be if we continue along the current trend, where we need to be ideally. So if we started at the time period and need to get to the end, at the end of the time period, considering the amount of work that we have, we needed to be at the red pace, at the pace of more or less 1 card per day. We're currently at 0.3 cards per day, so we have a serious problem. We need to, currently from where we're at, raise the pace to almost 2 cards per day to catch up. Now, what we need to do now is to make sure that this is an accurate graph. So there are a couple of things that are a problem here. One is that at the moment we count everything as the same size, which might be a problem because if we look at our board, the board has different kinds of sizes. The items that are currently running here are a very small size. There are stories. The items that are here in the release backlog usually will be bigger, and there will be more variance because we didn't groom them yet or break them down yet into small batches for processing. So the thing that we want to do is to say, let's calculate this based on the card size to get a better picture. And the next thing that is a problem is that if we look here, we are counting things, couple of items we're counting twice. So for example, if we look at the items for example, for feature 2 that's currently in progress, if we focus just on them, the feature BBB is counted as a big MMF in progress, but also the stories which comprise this feature are also counted. This is a problem. We only want to keep one instance of each kind of work. So if we took this big feature and broke it into smaller items, we want to count either the big feature or the smaller items. Now, my suggestion is to track the big feature until it's in implementation. While it's in implementation, just count the smaller features, and afterwards, after we will finish all of this, the stories for this feature, we will stop counting them and return to counting just the big features. Now, the way we accomplish that is, for starters, in the charts, we say disregard this lane of big MMF in implementation. The lane where the feature waits while its stories are in progress should not be counted in the CFD. That's one step. The other step is to say that once we complete the stories, the smaller items, we don't want to count them, so we move them to an area for completed subtasks, and then we disregard that area. This will give us a more accurate graph of what we need to see. Now let's just choose one of the other features which is closer to completion here. So for example, feature A, and let's simulate what we actually need to do when we finish a feature. So this is a feature in progress. What we need to do now is to say, okay, let's assume that all of the stories for this feature reach here are actually done. Let's make sure there's another one. And now we can say, okay, once we see that everything related to one is completed, we can say, okay, let's take all of those and put them here. Let's try something here and say, let's move all the cards here to the completed subtasks or stories area. You can see I actually caused a problem here because I moved a couple of things I didn't need to. We'll just return those here. And now we can move this feature here to MMF done. And basically we don't see the stories anymore in the CFD, we just see the feature again. Now the next thing that will happen probably is to choose the next feature from the backlog and start to enumerate the stories for that feature. And start to work on them and flow them step by step towards the end. Then after we're finished, we move this feature again to done and all of the completed stories here again. So that's what you need to do on the board in order to get this accurate cumulative flow diagram, which shows you basically the top line is the overall scope in your project based on the sizes that you put on the cards, the progress based on your actual progress. If you decide, by the way, that you don't want to look at pre-release but MMF done, you might get different numbers. But one thing the board wouldn't do is it will not fix the problem that you have here. Once you see this kind of gap, you need to really think what is going on. Do we have a very unrealistic scope for the version? Are we working in a mode where our WIP is too high and we think we will close everything soon, but at the moment we don't really know? So one way to deal with that is to reduce the WIP and see some completed items along the way. All of those different ways to deal with the problem that you're currently seeing, which is a very big difference between the yellow and the red, and a very steep correction trend that you need to, catch-up trend that you need to implement, the green line. You can also expand the graph here to see some more of the details. And that was a short movie on how to get a good cumulative flow diagram with trend charting based on hierarchic level boards, specifically using Linkit Kanban. Hope this was helpful. If you want to learn more about Kanban, go to agilesparks.com/Kanban or uvalyard.com for some of my blogs.